Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button and keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are after market close on Thursday, November 2nd. We're going to take a look at Draftkings today. So I actually thought Draftkings had earnings coming out tomorrow morning. Looks like it came out and the news is looking good, raising midpoint revenue guidance. Third quarter revenue raises 2023 guidance. So good stuff happening here. I've been watching DraftKings for a while, and this setup is just getting sort of more interesting. Now, this is the daily chart. I've actually been watching it on the weekly, which I think is fine to look at. It's this very similar setup. So you see here this downtrend resistance that has been caught under, but you see a very interesting kind of zone here that's been laid out. You see the resistance here in these candles that flip to support here. And if we take a look at where that's lining up, it's right where we are right now. So it's setting up with this sort of like descending triangle kind of pattern, or if it continues to put in some higher lows, sort of you just get a wedge pattern. But that's, pretty interesting to me if it continues to hold in that range. Now, descending triangle, I will say, I often look for it to push through the bottom of that. Now, it doesn't have to. It could sort of like make a strong motion in either direction when it sort of wedges itself out of there. And so, but I'm looking for a strong break of this downtrend resistance. It's just been looking like that to me for a while. I mean, it's been such a strong move up since it was down here in the like 10-ish area. And then it's been just sort of moving off of really obvious price points, right? There's resistance here as it sort of approaches 30, resistance up here as it approaches 32, and then there's kind of a pretty clean zone at the moment, at least on this weekly chart, of run room to about 35. So it hasn't been able to sort of get a full push of that yet. You see this one topped out at 34.49, and that sort of established this downtrend resistance. But if it continues to be able to hold in this range, then I'm really interested to see if it can do the thing that I don't often look for in a descending triangle, which is push to the upside. And it's just been sort of looking like that to me. I don't have a much better explanation for it than that, other than that's what it's been looking like to me. I could be wrong. But also, taking a look, actually, let me get the drawing off of here. Taking a look at the EMAs is the other thing I've been watching on this. And, this is sort of what gives me additional confidence in the possibility that while it's coming down in this sort of descending triangle kind of way, that it could push to the upside, because you see the EMAs here on this big move, they stacked in a bullish formation. And then this pullback has been kind of normal. The pullback has it's been pretty lengthy, right? It's several weeks. These are weekly candles, but it caught support right at the 34. That's what you look for. It's starting to kind of ride that again. The 8 is pushing up away from the 21 at the moment. So it's looking like it wants to maintain that bullish formation on the EMAs. Again, that could change. Obviously, you get a few strong bearish candles in there, and you do see there have been some big bearish upticks in volume. But it's, it has that sort of look and feel to me, like if there's an opportunity to push through the top of a descending triangle, like this may be it, because those EMAs are looking so strong as well. So kind of looking for that. The market is reacting to this in a positive way at the moment, so that's helping bolster this kind of buy zone that we were looking at. The thing that I'd maybe worry about, if it pushed down into this zone a couple of more times before it tried to break, I would worry that maybe it does that thing that I talk about all the time, which is it goes to the well too many times, meaning it comes down to a certain price zone and expects buyers to show up every single time it comes, and it just does it one too many times and the buyers aren't there, and then it kind of falls through that zone pretty quickly. Now, how far it falls, that would be the other question. There's obviously a lot of potential support in this area, but it would obviously unravel a decent chunk of this really positive up move that DraftKings has seen in the recent weeks. If we also take this off, we can sort of see where the volume is. So yeah, you see this is sort of the range that I'm looking at right around here. And we see, kind of lower volume in that range, but it picks up just below it. So it sort of looks like that's maybe why when we throw the drawing back in here, you see you get a constant kind of wick dip below that buy level, right? On each of these three, actually on this one as well, just not quite as far below, but it's coming into that increased volume below this one right here. So this one is more aligned with it, but this one is really where sort of like the buying has seemed to sort of, kick in and keep the price buoyed. But that's the one that I'm then sort of like wondering and worried about and saying, okay, if it needs to come down here, maybe more than one more time, and even one more time, I would wonder if that's the straw that breaks the camel's back. But in any case, if it needs to come down here again before pushing through this uptrend support, downtrend resistance. Holy smokes! It's really going to make me wonder how many more times are buyers going to continue to show up here or just below here to keep the price buoyed above this green zone. So that's sort of the one caution that I would take. But I do think that the view on the EMA side of things is really solid at the moment. Of course, that can flip, that can change, that can switch, but this entire move here, this unraveling, first time it is coming down to test this 34 support. You see when it dipped below here, it didn't even come down to the 21, and here it came to the 21, and then it lost that, but it is catching it at the 34. So I don't have a big problem with that at the moment, because it has been relatively stable, but we'll see how that plays out in the days ahead. Now, flipping over to the Think or Swim study, this is on the daily. We're predominantly looking at the weekly here just for reference. But on the daily, you see support swooping in here. So if it does come and dip down, this is the 180 to 200 EMA cloud, pretty thin at the moment, but the support could still be strong. It's just not a huge cloud. It's not a huge zone. That's okay. It's also right aligning with the bottom of the channel at the moment, but if the price can continue to rise, that's going to get itself well into the channel, depending on how quickly the channel swoops up as well. But that could be nice to have that support sort of into the channel a little bit. Maybe it gives it some added support if it starts to dip after a push. And we do see, interestingly, with today's push, it's just sort of trying to stretch itself over the mid-range of the channel, which is what we always look for when it either leaves the bottom of the channel like we saw here or leaves the top of the channel like we saw here. We look for always that reversion to the mid-range, and we see it. And now recently it's been pushing several times to the bottom of the channel, and now we see it once again climbing to test the mid-range. Now what's it going to do? The most recent attempts to climb the mid-range and build support have failed, and that's why it's pushed back down to the lower bound of the channel. So here's an opportunity, and it was recently triggering and then firing in the days leading up to this. Now my only concern on this setup would be that sometimes when you see this trigger and fire, and it's just starting to sort of build up here on the fire, that there's sometimes a counter trend. That's the actual play. So you get this initial counter trend, and then the counter to this, which would be down, is the actual strong motion that comes in from the trigger and fire. For all of the reasons that we just talked about on the Weeble chart, I would, maybe be a little bit less confident that this is a counter trend that's about to take place, but just something to maybe keep an eye on. If you do see a strong motion coming in there, you see also this volume ticking up on the daily. Again, this is on the daily. This volume sort of picking up as we are really leaning into this move from lower bound of the channel support / EMA cloud support, and then really a nice uptick in volume as we're coming into earnings and as we are building motion and pressure toward the mid-range of the channel. So those are things that I'm watching in the days ahead, but I have been watching this for a while. Again, I'm watching it on a weekly time frame here. So I haven't taken a position because I'm waiting for this situation to play out. And that's a longer time horizon, right? It's not an intraday trading position. It's not even a daily sort of position that I just would swing. It's a weekly position that I'd look to hold for several weeks or months into the future, depending on if the trade setup sort of sorts itself out or not. And to my mind, on the weekly, it hasn't quite yet. But interesting, good reaction so far. It's peeling back a little bit, so we'll see what it wants to do. Also something that's sort of been on such a strong uptick leading into earnings. Even a really good earnings report may give some investors some caution, may give them some sort of want to lock in profit, feeling that the shift from being in the 10s to already having stretched up into the 30s, was a big percentage gain. And so even if the earnings report is good, they may be questioning, is it good enough to sustain the bullish momentum and make more money on the profit side, or should I just lock this in and have this sort of be the culminating event for this swing and then sort of revisit it in the future? So whole bunch of possibilities sort of swirling around here, but I thought I'd bring this one in today because I have been watching it for a while, and I thought, well, earnings, even though I thought they were tomorrow morning, um, with earnings, I thought, okay, this is probably the right time to make a video on it. All right, folks, I hope that your trading week has been going well and that you finished off strong tomorrow. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.